So good evening, committee. We are now live streaming. I will call the meeting to order at 5:31 p.m. The first item on the agenda is nomination for chair for the 2026 year. Is there any nomination for the role of chair?
Oh, yes, I would like to nominate Jeremy Brock for another term as chair.
Perfect,
I'll second that.
perfect. And Jeremy, do you accept the nomination?
Yes, accept.
Perfect. So I'll put the recommendation on the floor that Jeremy Brock be appointed the chair of the Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee effective February 26, 2026 to November 14th, 2026. It was moved by Councillor Pridham and seconded by Rick. Call the question, all in favor? Any opposed? No, okay, so carried. So the next item on the agenda is then the nomination for vice chair. So any nominations? Rick?
I volunteer, Scott.
All right. Scott, do you accept that nomination?
Yes.
Okay, is there a seconder?
Sure, I'll second that.
Perfect. So I will put that nomination on the floor then, that Scott Crawford be appointed as vice chair of the Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee effective February 26, 2026 to November 14th, 2026. That was moved by Rick and seconded by Jeremy. I'll call the question, all in favor? Perfect, any opposed? Okay, so that is carried. And then Chair, I will now turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, thanks very much. So I guess the next order of business would be declaration of pecuniary interest. Is there any such declaration required? Okay, thank you. The next next item is amendments and approval of agendas. So I believe the agenda is here. We've seen it. Recommendation that the February 26, 2026 committee meeting agenda be approved as presented. Thank you, Pam, and second by Brian and Rick. Do we need to put a motion forward for that?
For the approval of the
For the
agenda.
approval, okay. So those in favor of approving that agenda? Thank you. Okay, acceptance of the minutes is the next item. So the recommendation that the 2028 or May 28, 2025 committee meeting minutes be approved by the committee. Those were forwarded before and attached here as well. Scott, thank you. Fern, second, all in favor? Okay, great, thank you very much. Next item would be reports. So the first report then is DCS 05-2026 Community Services Plan 25 review. That is Stephanie. Amazing.
All right, perfect. Just to give everybody a summary of 2025, we do this every year just to bring everybody up to speed on how our previous season was. So it's a very long report, so I will go through some of the highlights, but if anybody has any questions, interject along the way. I can fill in the blanks, but I'll just go through some of the high points just to give everybody an idea. So last year was a pretty busy year for the department, which was fantastic. We like to see busy years. Starting off with our Rec Culture and Leisure Master Plan, as we presented to the committee last year, there were 73 recommendations that we did have from that report, and of that 23 have been completed to date. So we are moving along. A lot of those were best practices. I mean, when we presented it to the committee, we said a lot of those best practices and items that were things that we should have been doing implemented right away. And there were a number of other recommendations that we worked on throughout the year. There are still some currently underway this year that will move forward throughout the year, and we'll bring that forward to the committee as we move forward to keep everybody up to speed. For the Senior Services Department, in 2025, one of those recommendations that were in the Rec Culture and Leisure Master Plan, recommendations 47 and 57, were to look at the department organizational structure. That was completed last year, and some minor adjustments were made for the realignment of the department so it functions differently. We found coming out of COVID, Senior Services has had a bit of a change, and there's been an uptick in many of our programs for services required throughout all areas. But coming out of the pandemic, we found that we definitely needed to make some changes. So that is what we focused on with Senior Services this past year, just to try to see how we could make it a little bit more functional. Memberships are increasing, so I did increase, you'll notice throughout the report, we have a lot of our statistics and numbers throughout the year, just to show everybody those shifts and changes in the numbers that we're seeing along the way. So we are seeing an increase in membership, and then this year we will see another increase in our membership. Senior Services does continue to partner with many partner organizations, including the Alzheimer's Society, Family Services, Mobility Services, and the hospital HPPH. So you'll see, I know Jenny has reported some of that to the committee in the past. So those partnerships still remain strong and continue to happen. So our dining program, and I don't know if we've talked a little bit about that here. So the Senior Services Dining Program is a large program. There's a dine-in at home program also that that the staff does offer, and it supports local business. So we get a meal and we deliver it to various individuals within the community. So last year there was 28,000 that went back into local business of meals that we were able to purchase in town and then provide and deliver out to individuals in their homes. So that was a good news story. So we try to keep the money in-house and provide as much as we possibly can. So staff continue to sit at the Ontario Health Team meetings as well, which is also big for the Home Support Services world and role. So Jenny continues to sit at that table as well. So that has been something that is still happening within her department. So there is still a demand for community support. It still remains very consistent. You'll see that it's reflected in our numbers, especially we're finding when it comes to food insecurity and those food hamper type programs. Those are programs that are of great need within the community, and we are starting to see even more. So we're trying to focus more on that and see where the gaps are and see if there's some things that we're missing. So Jenny's team will be continuing to focus and work on that this next year. Home Support Services the Senior Services Department as a whole does a lot of fundraising initiatives and endeavors throughout the year. And these initiatives help keep the programs affordable and attainable to individuals within the community. So we just included some of the funds raised, and you'll notice that there's a substantial increase in 2025 compared to the previous year. And these fundraisers continue to be, they'll be offered in 2026 as well. So we'll continue to do that. Moving out of Senior Services into our general ICE programs. So our ICE, once again, similarly to Senior Services, programs continue to grow. Numbers of hours of ICE required continues to be at an all-time high. Many years since we've seen these numbers. So that continues to be the same. Numbers are very high. When it comes to room rentals, we're seeing the exact same thing. The only difference with room rentals now is because program growth is so high. Sometimes the rooms are needed for programs as opposed to rentals. So you might see a bit of an offset where there's more programs and less rentals because the program space is in use. So that's kind of the shift that we're seeing a little bit. Yes.
How many rooms are, like, when we talk room rentals, is it, because if I think about the room, I think about the actual, like, the big room in the
Community center,
would there be other rooms beyond that, or is it broken into sections that considered rooms as well?
Yeah, so we have the community center. We have either the whole hall or the 1/3 and 2/3 hall. We have the end zone upstairs, which is another rental space. And then there's the rental spaces in the Friendship Center. So we have the main hall, multi-purpose space, and then meeting room A, B, and C.
Okay.
They're much smaller rooms. A, B, and C are much smaller, like more intimate type spaces where foot care takes place and stuff like that. So they're not rented as frequently. The community center and end zone see the majority of the rentals in the facility. However, multi-purpose space is often used in the Friendship Center is often used for things like 80th birthday parties, like those types of celebrations in there. We do see a lot of celebrations of life within our space, things like that, dinners, community service groups using our space. So yes, those are all of our spaces that we currently rent out right now. our projects, so our community services facility projects throughout, 2025. So there were 12 new capital projects in 2025 totaling 695,000. That excludes the PRC renovation. So the PRC pool renovation was an additional $2 million on top of that. 9 projects were completed, 2 were carried over, and 1 was deferred just because we didn't have enough bids on that one. Of the 9 completed project, of those 9, not the pool, excluding the pool, they were completed 21% below budget. The pool was completed on budget. So the aquatic center was completed on budget, and it did reopen on December 16th. So we were very successful with our capital projects last year. There are a number of more projects this year that we're working on, but things seem to be going relatively well. When it comes to the pool, there are still a number of deficiencies that we're working on with the contractors still to date that are still needing to be addressed. So we're going to continue to work on those as we move forward this year. But the pool seems to be has excellent humidity control on the deck, temperatures, things are running very well. There's no condensation on the windows. All those issues we had in the past are now not there, which is a positive thing for all of us. The next department, and I kept it on here, I typically don't report childcare because that's not something that reports back to this committee, but as it falls under the community services umbrella, I thought it was good just to bring it as an information point for the group to understand how childcare services operate along with our early on services. So the Child Care Center currently employs 42 staff at the center, and there's 218 children in our services. So we have 3 areas that we operate. One, the Child Care Center runs our daily programs at Holy Name. We have before and after school programs at both Little Falls and Holy Name. And then the Child Care Services also offers PA day programs, summer programs, get ready for kindergarten type programs. We run all of those. So those programs in combination, once a child hits that age of 6, then hops to Joanna's program through the recreation department. So it's kind of emergent services from 6 and up. So it kind of works very, very nicely. The good news story is in January in 2025, there were almost 500 on our wait list. Our wait list did decrease to 465. I mean, I guess it's not a huge number, but it is still a decrease, and we might still, I'm hoping we're continuing to see some of those decrease in numbers, but the wait list I know is still a bugaboo for many in the community, and we can only do what we can do. Yes.
This might be a what if, but it seems like St. Mary's is starting to grow in that direction.
Yeah.
Is there any possibility or any thought process as to where the childcare may end up going if Holy Name needs the space back?
So we have a 25-year agreement with Holy Name currently.
Okay.
So we will be there for the foreseeable future. So I don't think you're gonna see us leave.
Okay, no, I just thought with the town growing that way, that
But
Holy
that's
Name may
absolutely,
grow.
yes. Yeah.
The decrease in the people on the waiting list, so down from 500 to 465, is that as a result of increased number of spaces that maintaining the same number of spaces, but just people have taken themselves off the list?
It could have a little bit. We don't have the actual reasoning behind, and the wait list is managed through a central database.
I guess what I'm asking though, there weren't necessarily more spaces added though.
No, there were no more, there were
That's
no
fine.
additional spaces added in the
Right.
town of St. Mary's. However, there have been additional spaces added in Perth County.
Okay,
So if you kind of look at it broadly from that perspective, there have been more spaces added through Perth County, but not in the town of St.
yeah,
Mary's.
okay.
Yeah. Any other questions about it? Just a very high level overview. Early on is also a part of our child care services. Those are programs for children before they hit school. It's a free program that is completely funded. We had a total of 10,000 families through that program last year, which was a definite increase. So we're seeing increases along the way with that. That program continues to collaborate as well with various organizations within the community, which includes, you know, the fire department, the hospital, speech pathologists, like we do a lot of, the program does a lot of those small talks, all that type of program that they offer right now. Moving into guest services. So the team last year, because the pool was closed over 2025, it gave the team the time to look at some of our processes behind the scenes, some of our computer type programming, and kind of work on some of those areas and cleaning them up over the year. Joanna does oversee the guest services area, and it is a hub of activity where everything kind of flows through for all of our departments specifically, and even through some other town areas. We get a lot of inquiries because we are open so many hours, being open 7 days a week. A lot of stuff does flow through the PRC, so the staff is able to find their way through for that. So it's a great team, but they did do a lot of work over 2025. The town of St. Mary's, the recreation fair this past year. So the past was the second time that we did hold the recreation fair. And there were approximately 30 vendors, and it's estimated at 100 people that came through because we don't take attendance and we don't track everybody. That's what we anticipate did come through. So it's something that seems to be building a little bit, and we will continue to look at that program because it does help people understand the programs and services that are in the community, which is why we started doing it, because there were those questions about what's offered. I don't know if I have to focus too much on the Sports Wall of Fame because this committee is very well versed on the Sports Wall of Fame, and you know all the work that the committee does for that. It was another successful year. The wall looks great, and I think generally speaking, the community is very happy with that. That so much so we had somebody already come in looking for, and I didn't share that with Joe today, coming in and looking for an application form for this year already. They're like, just wait, give us another month. The youth center. So the PRC Youth Center is a drop-in program that is for children to come over after school, hang out, play with their friends, partake in some of the activities that the staff have there, and it has been a very successful program. There's 65 registered in the youth center for this academic year, so that's very positive. Camp PRC, so through the recreation department, through Joanna's department, the St. Mary's recreation department offers a Camp PRC. The Camp PRC is like what I had said, from childcare. After childcare, then you come to Joanna's programs. So it's a camp that's offered in the summer months for children, and it has actually been very, very successful. There were a total of 48 spaces available each week last year, and it's grown over the years. It has been quite a successful program. I think we're looking at maybe increasing the numbers this year because we have had requests for. If we get the requests, we see how we can manage that, and Joe has a great team for that. Along with that, they also offer PA Day and holiday camps, so it's very similar to what the camps are, but it's offered through holiday time or PA days where activities take place for children to register. So they do register for those activities. It's not a drop-in. They must register for those programs similar to the Camp PRC. Specialty camps are another program that Joe's team offers. These half-day camps are specialized, so they could be cooking camps or sports camps. They're half days. There's a very specialized niche, so they might do, if it's a sports camp, it's a sporting activity every day. If it's a cooking camp, it's cooking activities, and then they swim in the quarry or something after that. They've been swimming in the quarry, so we'll see if, as long as that continues, or not. How we change and look at that moving forward. External partners, so some of our indoor sports, and we haven't talked about that, I don't think a whole lot at this committee. So there is a lot of indoor activities that do take place at DCVI, where we offer basketball. So there's the basketball program there for youth. There's indoor soccer, and there's pickleball and badminton. So those programs have been very positive in the community, and we have relationships with those groups and help them out. So Joanna's team helps them out with those programs throughout the year. The participation numbers in those have increased over the years. Yeah, so they've been pretty good programs all along as well. Moving into aquatics, so last year we almost seen 30,000 people through the doors of the quarry. Just shy. It was those last rainy, cold days, that long weekend. We thought we were gonna be well over 30,000 and then we had really bad weather. So really, really close. But each year you'll see our attendance is gradually growing and we do see a lot of people through the quarry. There are some changes we're making this year. We're adding some change rooms down there up top of the quarry area by the Super Splash area where they're just change rooms where people can go in and change because the bathroom facilities don't have a dressing room or change room area. So we're trying to make some modifications and changes to down there. We're going to continue renting out the Lynn Sportsplex and offer, those birthday party type packages down there. So we're looking at those types of things. One of our biggest challenges down there last year were I'm going to call them zebra mussels, but I have now been informed that they're not zebra mussels, but another form of mussel. I don't know yet what, it's not a zebra mussel. So we continue to find ways in how we can keep areas that are high traffic areas clear of those. It's a lot of work on staff because there's areas where you wouldn't think there are mussels growing like under the rafts and people sit on the side of the rafts and then they kick their feet under and they're cutting them. So things like that we're trying to be mindful of, or the chains that hold the rafts, they're in the little links and as people swim by, if you're too tall. So we're trying to make sure we're finding those high traffic areas as incidents come in. So as incidents come in, we look at them each and every day almost and see, okay, we need to focus our efforts on this area or this area and make sure that we clean the mussels, but it's taking a long time to do that. So hopefully this year we have a better, the staff have been excellent at it. They're very diligently working, but it is just a new process for us. So last year was our first year experiencing it. We'll be over the quarry this year. We'll see. The mussels do not attach to the inflatable, that material they do not attach to. So luckily, that's where we're not seeing them, but we're seeing them every other place. So that was our biggest challenge at the quarry last year. So
I'm just curious, do you collect them and throw them away or do you just
no, we
drop
just
them in
scrub
the
them
water?
off. We just literally scrub them
Okay.
off. They're hard to scrub off too.
Do they die when you do that or are they still,
I'm not sure.
going somewhere else?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
They're just showing up new this in 2025.
They were probably there. To be brutally honest, they were probably there. We probably just didn't notice them. Until last year, there seemed to be this explosion and they were on the stairs, they were on the raft, they were on the rocks, they were everywhere. So
No one knows
Yeah,
why.
it's some direction somehow.
Well, even with boats, you put a boat in the water and you end up with a zebra mussel.
Yeah, but they've never been frozen for 100 years and now all of a sudden they're there. You
Yeah.
just wonder why they're.
Somebody's life jacket was like if you brought one from home that had been
water
away
shoes,
or a water
anything.
shoe.
It could have come from across the road at the other quarry from a fisherman.
We have had the river spill into the quarries when it's been
Yeah.
really high water.
Yeah, that was a long time, but I don't know how long it takes before they show, like the showing that we're seeing, I don't know how long it takes.
Got a question about the resident swim pass.
Yes,
What's the cost of the resident swim pass?
so the resident, I don't have the, no, well, it's prorated if you buy it in the middle of the summer.
Okay.
It'll be a lesser cost. We've tried to promote the heck out of it for the past couple of summers, because I think this will be going on our third summer of having the resident swim pass. There is a different one for adults and children.
Yeah.
And it is a discounted rate. I can't tell you off the top of my head, Jeremy, what the exact discount is.
Yeah.
To it, but it is a nice discount.
But like a single entry would be $7 or $8, is
Yeah,
that right?
$7.50, yeah.
Okay. So ideally, thinking that someone might, it's probably I'm probably just speculating, but the person would use it 10 or 12 times, so it's probably whatever the value.
Something like that when we worked it out. Yeah, it was something like that.
Okay.
We took a number and then we were like, okay, on average, if a person comes in, two times a week or something throughout the summer for 8 weeks, what would it cost? And then we'll do a discounted rate. So we've really tried to promote it because we do find, the majority of individuals that come to the quarry are not local.
Mhm.
Like they're not local. It is a tourism draw. I understand that as well, but we also want to promote locals to participate at the quarry as well. So we've tried to come up with some different things. We did talk to the owner of Super Splash to do different St. Mary's days where he had given discounts. He had done that the first 2 summers. I don't think he did it last summer, but we try to encourage the after 5 swim for people to come down because it's a lot cheaper to use the inflatable. If you come after 5, you can use the inflatable for like, I think it's like $9 less or something than what the other cost is. So there might be some other initiatives. If anybody has any ideas, yeah.
An idea. What if you did like a pass for a 2 or 3 week or a 4 week, 1 month pass? Because maybe parents are looking at, well, we're going away, we're gonna be, not available for a couple of weeks, but to give the kids a chance to come for a shorter period of time. Yeah,
Which we
Do that?
can do that because we'll do prorated.
But
If
I'm
somebody
just thinking-
decides that later in the summer, oh, I want my kids now to swim in
Yeah.
August, we'll do the proration, so
I'm
we can
thinking
do
for
the
the
same
beginning of
for the
summer instead
beginning.
of for the end of the summer, cause
Yeah.
there's only this much time remaining, but what if they're going away for 2 or 3 weeks
Yeah.
in August? And they would like the kids to
Yep,
swim in
we can
June
definitely
or
do that.
July.
And so the busiest time
July.
at the quarry really is August.
Yeah,
Surprisingly enough, July is dead compared to
yeah,
August.
so that'd be a good time
August is
for the
when it
locals
really
to come
ramps
in.
up and we need, more bodies, more staff working just because it's really, really busy. And I think a lot of people, you're right, a lot of people might go away, first 2 weeks of July, they're gone, they're out of town, then they come back and they're looking for
Mhm.
something to do too, so.
What are we discounting though even more than it is? Like, I realize that
Mhm.
there are some fixed costs with having the thing operational. But it's the same old thing of, you sell $150 or you sell 25 at $80.
Yeah, it's that fine
It's-
line.
There's gonna be more, so sometimes cost will be a thing for sure.
Oh, I think so.
Your fixed costs are gonna be the same, because you're still gonna have the same amount of staff. Correct.
Sometimes we need more staff if we.
If there are more people.
If we have more people.
Especially in
coming
water,
through.
you need supervision.
That's the only tricky part, because it's the variability of that, or
Mhm.
having random people, but I feel like it's one of those things where if there's more. If there's more incentive to come, and generally it's a financial incentive, then more people in town will be more likely to use it. I don't know, I mean, it's just my thinking, it's,
Mhm.
I feel exactly the same way, because that big number for the whole summer seems like a lot of money if you've got 2 or 3 kids and you're. Handing it all out for a pass for the whole summer, but if you could get them a pass for 2 weeks. Or 3 weeks, which is an affordable price for them, and it's like, kids, you get to go to the park for these 3 weeks for, unlimited amounts of use.
I just feel it's sort of like the opposite, a little bit of the taxes I pay for my cottage, I get to. I really only get to put 3 or 4 bags of garbage out in this whole year. But I pay a lot so that everybody else that lives there all year,
Mhm.
so their taxes stay down, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of it's the opposite of that.
It is.
Those folks who are coming and paying whatever the daily rate is to come, that are coming from out of town. It's great, we want them to be there, we want to promote it, but I think too, if you have more people from town, in town promoting it, bringing their friends from out of town, and all of the things, that's a little bit of a more incentive to, consider the price point for people for that pass, but.
Do we know what the price is at Kirkton for it? I guess that's.
I mean, they're a little bit apples and oranges, only because you can't touch the bottom here and you can't at Kirkton, right? So there's a certain clientele for sure, but yeah, there is that's a comparison too, it's all relevant.
I just think the St. Mary's experience is being able to swim in the quarry too, right? Growing up in town, it's one of those things, it's prohibitive because of the price. It seems very unfair for some families, but yeah.
Like, it probably isn't on a 1-day basis, but if you're gonna go repeatedly over the course of the summer, like if that's gonna be your go-to. Rather than splashing around the river, or if you don't have a friend that has a pool and you're not going all this. Then you wanna try and capture that group of people who may be interested in supporting
Even just like a coffee card, you know, you get the stamp, 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 and then you're done, right, or something like that. So it's so many times, stamp, 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 and then they use their. then-
Actually, that's a decent idea too,
Yeah,
like a 10-pack.
yeah, exactly, for any time when you can or you're available to go.
But if it's
Yeah.
transferable too, and you bring 4 friends, you buy a 10-pack for $50, let's
Mhm.
say.
Yeah, and
You
your
might
friend-
take you and your 5 friends with you.
Your friend
and-
Fern can't go because she can't afford it, but I'll use, Mom said you can come on mine,
Or I
right? Like,
bet
yeah,
You and I
yeah,
have friends in from town and we all go.
yeah.
And we use one card, but it saves us some money in that way too, that's a possibility, I mean, certainly it works. With things like golf courses and places like that where you. And they are transferable year to year, so sometimes it's up to you to hang on to it. It's not really up to the lifeguards or someone else to store it, it's up, you know, I think
Yes.
about mine at River Valley, it's my job to hang on
Yes.
to it, if I lose it. I've forfeited those games, but
And we
Yeah.
did get rid of that.
Or
So
token.
there used to be year over year passes at the quarry, and we did get rid of that because we were getting passes that were coming back that were 15, 20 years.
Yeah, that doesn't.
So we were really mindful of that because we kind of looked at that model, and that was a model that we struggled with because it was just going to be for that year. So the resident pass that you purchase now is just valid for that summer. It's not transferable to the next year, and it's not really supposed to be transferable for your friends out of town. Because it's
Right.
for the taxpayer, it's
Yeah,
supposed to be
that's
for the
true.
better benefit of the taxpayer at the end of the day, so. We've looked at different models,
Oh.
and we do struggle with that,
What
so.
about tokens? With like the year, 26 token. And then, you know, they buy 10 tokens, they come in handing their token and away you go.
it
As a
comes with a
resident.
tax bill, that'd be awesome.
Anyway,
The other thing to note is, so I know, I can't remember what comment you had made there, Fern, but there was a comment, so we used to do swimming lessons in the quarry. And we found that the registration numbers for swimming lessons in the quarry was exponentially lower and lower and lower and lower every year because children seem to be fearful to swim in the quarry where they can't see or touch the bottom.
Yeah.
So we got rid of that program, and then we would offer private lessons, and then nobody was signing up for it. So we find that now that we have the pool, the Pyramid Recreation Center pool, people will swim there. They don't want to take swimming lessons at the quarry. There just seems to be a shift in vision of that. So I don't know, that
Yeah.
shifted over the years. I know you made that comment.
yeah, well,
Everybody
everybody
likes
likes
to swim
Mary's
at the quarry.
experience, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
there
but
seems
that's
to be a
because,
shift.
I
yeah.
mean, I was terrified
Mhm.
and I thought for sure I would drown, yes, right?
You will not.
But, you know, as a kid,
Yeah.
and I had to take lessons there because you're forced to, and yeah. And, but then again, once I got comfortable, you're swimming in the quarry and that's that. Even the, rite of passage is the St. Mary's experience to go and do that, to me.
Yeah, and we do encourage the kids to go down and take the quarry test, and we do encourage that. Some of them do. Not as many as we used to see, but yeah, so a little bit of a shift. But these are all great ideas. I'm gonna share these ideas with Andrea, and we can talk about these. And if anybody has any other further ideas, definitely share them.
Well, I guess if I go back to the punch pass or like that, even like, you know, as you described it, year over year, like to carry it over year to year is, if that's tricky, you could do it. Like with full understanding, like full disclosure, it's like 1 year, it's the 26 season punch pass or whatever.
Yeah.
Cause I think if, in order to buy it, you need to be a resident.
Yes.
If you bring. You know, if we bring friends to the arena or something like that, you pay for them to come in. Well, I might pay for them all to come in, even though they're not necessarily taxpayers
Yeah.
or whatever, so there is a, you know, as long as it's been purchased by somebody. There's some incentive.
Yeah, and that's exactly, I mean, we just try to promote it because we know, we hear it from locals specifically about the costs. So we want to make sure that we try to have a reduced cost for the locals
Yeah, for sure.
specifically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions about anything?
Is the quarry open at all weekends prior to school closing or after July or September long weekend?
No, so the quarry opens, I think it's this year, June 26th or some 27th, I can't remember. The 27th, yeah, as soon as school is done, and then it closes right after Labor Day. we don't have a lot of guards that we can get prior to or after, especially after Labor Day
Okay.
hits. But yeah, that's typically, we did used to open on weekends in June.
Yeah.
Attendance was so low. Attendance was very, very, very low, so we changed it and started to open it up just as soon as school was done, and it's kind of a bit of a slow haul, because like I said, those first 2 weeks of July are enormously, they're very slow. But it's a nice training ground for everybody then at that, getting familiar with everybody at the same time, so it works really well, but no, we do not currently open on weekends in the, or weekends in June, I mean.
Are you still having the problems on trying to get enough lifeguards and trying, is, you had a problem because of COVID and everything, and then is there now enough people trained locally that can do all the lifeguarding?
So we were doing really well, a couple years after COVID, because people were back in swimming, able to take their advanced courses. But then the pool closed for a year and we weren't offering any of those training courses because we couldn't, because we didn't have a pool. So we kind of lost our feet right under us for last year. So this year's a bit, we're starting to see this year's, yeah, we're posting again for lifeguards right now. I do think once we're open and once we have that consistency and we have that great volunteer program that Andrea started up, like an LIT, lifeguarding training type program, that's been very successful, that she implemented, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago. Those types of programs are incentives for those youth to become, they get to see what it's like, they get to work alongside of other guards. And that has been very successful to help from a training ground perspective and for incentive, but last year with the pool being closed for the year has really impacted us. So we've put another job posting right now, and hopefully we would like to see some more guards apply, but.
I wonder whether you should do a story in the paper of somebody that did that and then goes to university, ends up taking those skills to be able to pay for part of supporting themselves. If you knew about somebody that had gone through your program and went to university and because there's a lot of opportunities sometimes. They have a pool at the university and you can have a part-time job and the stuff that you skill stuff that you have. Just to maybe, it's not just, pre-university, you can actually be earning money after that. Like while you're in school.
That's a good idea.
Just a story.
If anybody has any ideas. And like I said, like after this year and we run our advanced classes throughout the year, it'll be different next summer, but yeah, there's definitely a different shift because those youth that might have taken that last year, if their parents might not wanted to take them out of town, or maybe they didn't think of it, or for whatever reason, we just feel that there's a lot less.
It's an impressive report. It's amazing what St. Mary's managed to do.
Mhm. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Any other questions?
Okay, that's, thanks, Stephanie. So the recommendation that DCS 05-2026 Community Services 2025 review report be received. Favor, Rick, thank you. Pam, seconds. All in favor? Perfect, thank you. All right, 7.2 DCS 06-2026 Sports Wall of Fame project update. I believe that's Joanne. All right.
Sit over here just because I usually sit over here. I know Steph doesn't like to have her back to the door, so I'll protect her if anybody storms. Facility. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thanks for your attention to Steph's report. We know there's a lot of information. I think a lot of this we've discussed either just casually in passing when I've seen you throughout the community, but also now that we've had 2 years of review, a lot of what's summarized in this report comes from those May meetings that we've had for the past 2 seasons where we're reviewing the nominees and the submissions and really considering what constitutes excellence in sport in St. Mary's and what that looks like and who we're considering and how to make this a sustainable program long-term. So I will go through the report just at a very high level. There aren't a lot of complicated decisions to be made. More of them are just, this was something that we had discussed as a potential plan moving forward. We've now gone through 2 seasons. Does everyone agree that this is what we should do moving forward, or do we have any opportunities for success? So it truly is a review of the program, and then a little bit more specific discussion about some of the selection criteria and broader conversations that we've had during those meetings when we are reviewing eligibility, which will be coming up in just a few months. So on the background, you already know, because Stephanie covered the Sports Hall of Fame, and this group is very familiar with it, but we've now been through those 2 seasons. So a couple of things, and actually, Amanda, is it okay if I ask you for some expertise? So something that Amanda and I had discussed after we've gone through all of this and attached it is moving forward. So after all of the discussion today, the changes, the proposed changes, as long as this committee agrees, goes forward to council to be approved before the eligibility and nominations open on April 1st. What we would like to propose is that we separate the 2 pieces where the submission form, like your contact information, yes, I consent, yes, I understand, adding all of that, be included separate from the policy itself. So there's a policy that outlines the eligibility criteria, the timeline, the general process, and the fact that this committee oversees it. But then the more administrative logistic, if we want to change a form to say, yes, I confirm you can contact me, that falls outside of the policy, is more of a supporting piece. And that just gives the committee and staff who will be working on it moving forward a little more freedom to make sure it functions. Because as a good example from just this past year is the town of St. Mary's transition to a new website host. Like, so all of the links and domains and all of the information, like all of that gets carried over. So there are inevitably little changes in the way that those things appear, but it doesn't change the eligibility of the nominees. So that's something that, do you have anything that I missed that we wanted to clarify?
Yeah, so what Joanna was explaining is, council has approved your eligibility, and because it's one large document right now, any revisions has to go back to council to approve. So what this next revision that we're working on tonight, once council adopts that, if they adopt the policy as a standalone document, then like Joanna said, if you need to change the phone number or the address or something on the application form, that doesn't have to be waited to go through council for approval. So instead of it being one large document, just looking at separating it into 2, because policies are endorsed by council and approved by them, so any changes would have to go through them. So they'll approve that portion of it. And then the application form would just be a second appendix supplementary to the policy.
Just makes it way more user friendly.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so after tonight, based on the recommendation, that'll be brought forward to council next month, and then the hope is that the changes would be implemented for April.
Really just taking whatever the total number of pages is right now, 10, and making it 6 and 4, or whatever the split is on those, so it's 2 separate, not inherently tied together. Thank you for the clarification. Which brings us to action number 1, which is something that really only impacts me or whatever staff member is receiving the nomination, something that we've learned, and I chatted with Scott about this and how it's handled at the Hall of Fame, is the communication piece and that transition from being a nominee to being an inductee. So the initial nomination comes from whoever submitted the application, which is not often the person who is in fact being nominated. So I would like to modify each of the respective sections, which are in effect all the same, but it would need to be done 3 times over because of the various categories, to state that the nominee is considered for selection, which they already do. They consent that they know they're being nominated, but then understanding that if successfully selected, the nominee becomes the primary contact. The first year, we had some disconnect where the primary contact information was the person who submitted the nomination, not the inductee. So there was just some lost conversation there. That was a little bit improved in the second iteration, so we'll continue to improve it, but we just want to make sure that that's abundantly clear to the person being nominated, that they will have to take over some responsibility of that moving forward, including coming back to collect your things at the end of the 12 months that your items are on display. So,
It feels like that might have been an issue.
yeah, they're still in my office. So those things we want to clean up. Does anybody have any issue with making that change? Wonderful.
I think that's excellent. I really think that, even for the nomination process, they should be able to get more details from that person, because somebody might say, oh, that's a great person, I know they've got won this, but they don't really have all the details necessarily for the submission form, so. I mean, that'll probably come up later, but I really think we need to have a statement for the nomination that you are allowed to talk to the person and get the detailed information for submission, because I really, when we were trying to judge the different submissions, somebody just wrote, oh, good guy, and hardly anything. And even though they'd accomplished a lot, the details weren't supplied because it was just from their memory, and I really think we have to encourage, when the person makes a nomination, that they are allowed to contact the person to get the details, coming from them.
The only thing about that one is, so for example, the first year Riley Hearn is deceased, so in that particular case, is there, like, this wouldn't apply, obviously.
Right,
to someone.
yes, yeah, and that's a good point. We'll make sure the language reflects that if willing and able, something.
Yeah, something
along
just
those
to
lines,
capture that too, so, because again, if we're trying to make it so it's like bulletproof going forward, so
Yes.
it doesn't need a lot of revisions then.
And it's all completely subjective based on who even gets nominated.
Sure.
So we're doing what we can, but I think Pam, you're right, and that's not necessarily something that I had captured here, so I can add it to this section, that finding a way to emphasize, because I know, and Scott's working with somebody on an application. We're encouraging them to add more information, but if they've already got it in their mind that this person is a shoo-in, they're great, they've contributed so many things, but reminding them that the committee doesn't necessarily have the same, especially sports specific knowledge that the nominee has. So trying to, emphasize that it should be written for a general audience, not someone with specific awareness of that sport.
Well, the assumption that that they're unknown to
Yes.
whoever it is. that's receiving it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, thank you, that's a really good point. Amanda's probably wondering why I'm handwriting, because I asked specifically if I could open the document, and now I'm ready to get off the paper anyway. Okay, so we'll move along to the next one, is the Pyramid Recreation Center display case. I know if we think back 2 years ago now, when we were envisioning what would go in the display case, it was hard to imagine what would be brought forward by the inductees before they existed, but I think it's done really well in coming to fruition and highlighting that. So this was more of a, now that we've gone through it a couple times, we wanted to finalize that. So the suggestion is that we request memorabilia submissions for new annual inductees. There was some consideration to whether prior inductee memorabilia would remain in the display case, which was more of an apprehension, not knowing what would be submitted, but we've been very successful in having folks bring in sufficient items to keep the display filled. And with that, it would just be that now part of the policy indicates that town staff will clearly communicate expectations for the display case to the successful inductees annually in the spring, and then it allows them this entire summer and early fall to collect items. We know with Mike from last year, he wasn't physically present in St. Mary's during those months. So it was nice to have a large window of time to be able to pull together whichever items they would choose to display, and including review, labeling, and storage based on the annual inductees. Does anybody have any comments or feedback about the display case?
I just have a question. Is there anything that you've had to purchase that stays kind of year to year, that's like like a body, like the shape of a body that a sweater goes on or something like that? Like, that's not something that people are expected to have.
No, we have purchased those.
Some of those kind of things.
Yeah, the first year, we invested a lot in, there's, if you've looked closely, a lot of it's put on acrylic shelves, just because the way the display cases, we wanted to highlight the items rather than whatever it's supplied on. So we do have 2 mannequins for jerseys or jackets. And we bought a lot of like, plate holders, so that things that stand like a plaque or a photo that's
Yeah.
not mounted on anything. And we also got we got uniform card display stands, so a lot of the inductees that have brought their own like hockey cards or baseball cards, they gave them to us in sleeves or kind of an assortment. So what I've done is taken them out of whatever they gave us, try to preserve whatever their home collection is, put it in the items that we have on hand and then return it to them. And now I feel like since we've had a couple of runs through it, we've got a pretty good base layer. I think this year I only needed to purchase 1 picture frame and a second mannequin because we had a jersey and a jacket.
Yeah, no, I think it looks great. I think it's one of those things when we first talked about it, we really didn't have any idea what it's gonna look like. And like you said, we weren't sure whether we would need to keep things there to make it look like it was. I think the first group, I think, did a really nice job of filling it. And I think then the second group would give them an idea of what it should look like or what it might look like, right? So,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, no, it looks good. I think that language is good, though. I think the sooner you can get it, the better chance you have of looking full and being complete.
What's the plan with the stuff you have in your office?
Just
Very sad.
wait until they come to the pool. I happen to know one of them swims. So that's my current plan. For the most part, the nominees or their representatives are local, and if they don't come pick it up themselves, someone else in the community has. It's just been one that I don't think is purposefully being left there. It's just not top of mind when you're coming to the building for something else, especially if the office door is
Is there a
closed.
plan of what to do with stuff if they don't want it back?
We've been successful with people wanting it back. I think right now the issue is just the forgetfulness of picking it up. We had chatted with Amy at the museum about whether a longer standing collection would be valuable, but I know it would be difficult to establish any kind of consistency with that. And whether people even want to, I think a lot of them are happy to lend it for a 12-month period, but then bring it back to their home and keep it wherever it may have been displayed previously. We can kind of just case by case basis and hope that somebody wants it.
Or you get to keep it?
Or we put it in one of the many other display cases in the PRC that's sports specific. Would probably be our fallback. If it was a hockey stick, we'd put it in the hockey display case.
So kind of like spoiler alert to the next section about the digital display, but also a little bit with this, like, and I've never stood there long enough to look at it. The digital slides carry over from year to year, like, are we building, or is it just last year's inductees that are on currently?
So right now, it's only last year's inductees. In discussions with corporate communications, who manages the technology side of it. We had decided that for the induction weekend and subsequent months, at least for a period of, we had originally said 3 months, but I think we're there now. So if we're gonna change it, it would need to happen, that to retire the old ones when it's fresh. So that for the first, and this group could establish a set number of weeks, so maybe if it happens annually around late October, early November, then by the end of January, we start cycling back in the old ones. We had also discussed, and like you said, well, it's the next item. Yeah, well, so we're there. We've currently dedicated 2 to 3 slides. We've been able to, there's lots of content for all of the inductees, so we've been able to fill 3 slides easily. But then for keeping it more in an archival rotation, consolidate down to 1. So the current class of inductees would have 3. And then after that group would be single slides where somewhere on the top of it, it would say 2024 inductee and just a single page summary instead of, because otherwise then it becomes very long, very quickly. But that's just something we had chatted about as an option. It's not an issue right now because it wouldn't be growing to an unmanageable size if you were to stand there and want to watch all of them cycle through, but many years on, that
Sure.
would be a factor.
And remind me, do we have is there a plaque there or something that, or like individual items for people that, like, every time a class goes in, there's something that stays on the wall?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. I guess that would just be, that's the only connection then to those.
Yeah,
The
would be
slides would be
looking
that,
back.
whatever like the plaque or whatever, and then as the digital piece comes up.
Mhm.
Does the communication, that manages this, do they have a web page with the history, the full 3-page history? And it's
So,
available?
That was and is the intent.
Uh-huh.
It's something that, when did we transition to the website? November-ish?
Yeah.
So the entire town of St. Mary's website transition happened, and we had chatted about what to do with the Sports Wall of Fame slides at that time. So right now they're not on there, but I think it's an easy thing. They've mentioned that it could just be like a rotating gallery or a drop-down list where there would be years, and you would click 2024 and then it would expand and populate
Yeah,
and have everything in there.
it's like, I mean, the ability to add a code, like with QR codes and then just scan it and then you see. So you don't have to have, 10 years of inductees and stand and wait forever. You could have,
Yeah.
say the 3-page for the current year and then a 1-page for maybe a year after, 2 years or whatever. And then for further information on past inductees, scan here and you can go to the full list.
Yeah,
Or if you did that, you would only have to ever keep the current year up.
yeah,
Right?
there would be a
Yeah.
link
Like,
too.
click, like scan here to access previous.
Mhm.
Yeah, and then you
years,
wouldn't
like,
actually
link
have
Directly
to,
that space in the website and you work
Yeah,
through it,
that's
that'd be
true.
great,
Yeah.
yeah.
and
Yeah,
you wouldn't
maybe
have to make that smaller 1-page
For sure.
condensed piece,
Mhm.
yeah.
You get the QR code to transition, and then have each individual as a
Yeah,
pop-up link
you could look.
to link to it if they
Mhm.
wanted to.
Mhm.
Yeah, because if it linked directly to the town website, that then becomes the functional storehouse of all of that. And then it's linked from someone standing in front of the wall to,
Mhm.
like, it leads directly to that
I'd
space.
imagine that most people walking in there would have a cell phone,
Yeah,
Yes,
a means of
More than
being
likely.
able to get to it.
a lot of them do also have an hour to stand in front of that. But
yeah, but if you scan it, you can do it
But
at
you
home
can do
too.
it like
Yeah.
that. You can
And
do
you
it in
can send the link to
Scans
somebody
after,
that you know, hey, get this.
But
this
yes, no, I
person's
think that's
there.
we could even. I know there was, I can't recall who the source of this was, but the QR code being a physical item, there was some concern about people putting stickers over it. And that then it redirects you. But if it's, behind the glass would be more of like a permanent link, but it could also be on one of the slides. It would just rotate through. So, yeah, all good. I'll talk to IT about our QR code security situation. They're very apprehensive about
Oh, are they?
everything.
Right.
But I think that, like you mentioned, having it somewhere that's behind the glass where you can still scan it, or having it on a rotating slide would. I personally don't see any issue with it, so we'll start with that. So.
I just think that would be a great way then to give it a little bump on the website too, so that it is,
Mhm.
so that those materials that have been created already have a landing page, have a home.
Yeah, and then it would bring you to the link for nominations and everything else
There you
all
go.
at the same time, so
Synergy.
beautiful.
I've got a question about the last one, the display and the things that maybe people don't want to pick up because someone has maybe passed or they want to leave it in a safe place. Is Amy able to take those donations if it was a request?
She hasn't said a definitive yes or no.
I wonder if we might want to ask her because you may get that inquiry. We really don't want to house it in the closet.
Yeah,
And it's someone of, their significant person in their past.
yeah, I think we'd have to start by asking what the museum's capacity is to take it, because it would be an ever expanding collection with.
Yeah, and I don't know that it would be something you maybe publicize, but just someone that, the odd person that requested it.
Mhm. We can definitely reach out to the museum and assess their thoughts. The next one, I don't know why I put it in the middle of the list. I think this one's gonna take the longest, so we'll skip over number 5 for right now, if everyone's okay with that.
Sure.
And then the annual induction ceremony has been hosted in the end zone on a weekend annually in the fall. I think it's largely gone over very well. I believe that most of you are, have been past attendees or at least familiar with the way that it facilitated. So we do an unveiling downstairs in the main lobby, relatively short turnaround for that because the lobby on any given weekend could be quite busy based on our ice users, especially now that the pool is reopened. And then we transition up to the end zone. One thing that we had considered was whether there would be benefit to doing the ceremony in the 1/3 hall downstairs. There certainly is from an accessibility perspective. It's easier to walk around the corner and go down to the 1/3 hall. But that may feel like a very large space if we don't expect a large number of attendees. So that's something we may need to gauge annually. Like if we had 2 full teams and expecting a lot of team members and their families to attend, we would need a larger space. But if in any given year, the inductees are individual athletes or builders and you're not representing quite as large of a group, then that's something we'll have to kind of assess week or year, so happy to hear everyone's thoughts on how the event has gone or how it can be improved.
No, I think it's good. There's not much room to, I guess the one thing would be like, if you're trying to, let's say you have an event and you're not anticipating a lot of people. Like last year seemed busier, seemed to be more people in the end zone than there was the previous year. But let's say for some reason there was another 40 or 50 people came like that, then all of a sudden that space is not used, like it's too full for the space. At least if you're in that 1/3 space, you could always expand it if you had to, right? You could open a wall or just like if
Yeah,
you had that surprise. I don't think too big is a problem. I think too small might be.
yeah,
And it's worth trying like in a different location.
Mhm.
Just to see how it goes, because the other piece might be it's maybe just not very cozy, it's not very, it just doesn't feel the same or whatever, I don't know, like it's just not very useful, maybe the space for that.
Mhm.
More year by year thing, right?
Yeah.
You have 3 people and no one's coming, or 2 people and family members are only coming, then
Yeah.
you have 20 people coming, you don't wanna make it seem like you're in a monstrous room.
Yeah, more of
So I
a,
think it's a year by year.
keep it
I
top
think
of
either will
mind.
work.
Yeah,
Yes, going upstairs and in the elevator for people, but that's really the only difference. I like the end zone.
Yeah, I don't think the issue is having the ceremony and doing that, I think, like, we would all agree that was really well received and people found it really meaningful and it was well attended. I think it's the reason why it's kind of the icing on the cake for that nomination for people, so.
I want to say apologize that I couldn't come last year because my band was playing that afternoon. So I
okay.
got to be committed.
so you gave up a chair for someone else. It was busy.
Yeah, it was nice.
Which is great, that's what we want.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, too many is a good problem to have.
Mhm. Yeah, it was really nice. I think especially the Lincoln's group worked really hard to get the word out to as many people as possible. And that's another factor that it would be very dependent on the champion within the induction class. If there's someone who's working really diligently to connect with everyone and find representatives, and then we can probably anticipate we should use the 1/3 hall if that happens.
And you get that idea sort of thing, right? Like,
Mhm.
you could sort of tell how many people might show up.
Yeah,
It could have been bigger last year because we had the Lincolns as a team and individuals from that and families from that might have
Mhm.
wanted to attend as opposed to if all we had was individuals.
yeah.
I think that's.
So we'll continue with the general process of the
Mhm.
unveiling and then moving to a reception elsewhere, but the the venue to be determined based on anticipated needs. Okay, great, thank you. So the next one that's listed as number 7 and going back to number 5, I think they're a little tied together. Could we share it now? Yeah, I think now is the time. So what is listed here is consideration for revision or expansion to the eligibility criteria without going into the specifics of teams, athletes and builders, because I think this group has a lot of feedback. What I've written here was based on memory from our past conversations, but something that I really hope we can do as a group today is, with our 2 years of experience, reflect back on the types of nominations that have been received, what we can now anticipate is the caliber of inductee. And we know there's lots of folks who have accomplished amazing things that we're not yet aware of. But there are certain things that maybe don't fit within the criteria the way that they've been written. And it might be as simple as removing one word or adding a few additional descriptors to enable, especially for more unique or niche sports. So in St. Mary's, just as a very high level example, ringette is still popular in St. Mary's, but it's dwindling in participation elsewhere. So winning something as noteworthy as a national or international championship in ringette is all but impossible for a ringette team from St. Mary's to do, which is not to diminish the accomplishments of those teams. So kind of reframing how you're thinking about that and putting a different lens on it. If there's a way for this group, if this is your desired direction, to make some minor modifications that allow for consideration for less mainstream or larger governing body sports. So for something like soccer, hockey, ball, those have local, regional, provincial, national, international, very well established programs, but for things that are a little smaller scale, like there was someone that I saw, and have any of you ever been to the Oshawa Generals Arena? I can't recall what it's called, but their wall of fame is on the walls just around the perimeter of the arena, and they have someone who did like dog sled racing, which probably wouldn't have been in our listed criteria, but it's something that someone from that community represented to the highest degree of that class. So as I continue to wander around the province and look at other people's Hall of Fames, and also through the things that we have received over the first 2 years of intake, I've just added a few notes for things that we could consider or expand upon or perhaps revise. So opening the floor for your feedback. Amanda, we could scroll to page, I think it's just page 2. So what is on the board here is the eligibility criteria as we've been using it, and then the red text are recommended changes or revisions, just some language to consider that if you are open to revising it. Can we zoom in?
That's what I'm thinking. I can't really see it.
We could zoom in quite a lot. If we just zoom into
I'll just
teams.
stand up there a little closer.
Yeah. Because I don't think we
There
need
we
to see
go.
the part where it shows what my revision, like the column, just the actual text.
I think where you take, like, you've identified professional in the action phrases in a few of those, and I think what it. Like, the niche piece, if you take out professional, it then allows like noteworthy success, it doesn't really, then it's really wide open. I think, you know, as it was here, we talk about professional. It isn't just professional success, but it's a noteworthy success, and there's that, and then there's this part of, there's this piece that you're talking about, that's like, where it's, could be a kind of a narrow, like a very small, a small number of people that are competing that, but that person was exceptional, and so I don't know if there's.
So a few things that I've found just from continuing to explore others that I've seen in person and kind of noted some language that they saw was demonstrating, so this is the part that's in red here. Demonstrated outstanding performance or success in competition, which could have been a championship, a record-setting season, a notable tournament or playoff achievement, or sustained excellence over a significant period of time. So instead of tying it to something very specific, like we've listed the Olympics or the Pan Am Games or collegiate or youth sports. So taking out the very specific examples and making it a more broad, because the ultimate decision still falls to this committee. you could still review someone's application and deem that it isn't anything or is something particularly noteworthy. So relaxing the language a little is one option, and then something else that I've noted in a few others was the concept of a dynasty, which feels like if there were dynasty teams in St. Mary's, you would probably already be aware of them, but multi-year teams where a consistent core group remained successful over a period of time within a local program. So that's just something that I've seen elsewhere that does not necessarily need.
So is this additional information or
So
is it replacing?
the red is just some language that I've seen. This is not yet in the policy.
Okay.
It's for your consideration, and then we can modify. So this piece, there's a little bit of a delay here. But the part here, the paragraph text would be, if you're going to make any changes, we would make it there. And the way that the two colors work, whatever changes are made appear in this track changes document. This is what would be presented to council, so they can very clearly see what remains the same and what we've changed. So the text that's in red at the bottom is just some recommendations that I've given for your consideration, that if you choose not to use it, will come out. That was just for discussion this
What are you
evening.
suggesting we change? We take out the word professional, that's what you have highlighted.
That's one, I would
Open,
say,
yeah.
but I mean, if you took the top statement, let's say demonstrated like outstanding on fallback. And it from the team has demonstrated and goes from there. All you would need to do, like you could put put that in the first red paragraph. But then you put at the end of it, like in provincial, I'm just trying to think of. Instead of recognized provincial, national or international competition or something like that. Just,
It opens it up a lot more to someone who thinks something's really important, but they think it's really important, but it's really not important.
And that would be for the committee to decide. Because there are certainly a lot of things that are very sport specific that aren't as, like, when someone wins the Stanley Cup, I think everyone can say, yes, that's very difficult to do. That's noteworthy achievement. But if someone wins, I don't know what it
well,
would
then
be, to do
let's say
something
win
I'm
a
not as
national
familiar with.
championship in lawn bowling.
Right, but we don't have a lawn bowling specific, and I personally often fall back to Ringette as my example of. There are Ringette teams locally that may be doing very well that won't win a national championship because Ringette is not popular across the country.
What's
An
their highest
individual
thing?
player, it would be nationals though, like an individual player who's played in St. Mary's and goes to compete for Dorchester in the nationals and wins nationals. Would fit the criteria we set all along, for example, right? Although they didn't win it on behalf of St. Mary's, but they're St. Mary's, I guess it's no different than say Mike Craig, he didn't, like.
Who's
he-
representing
He was a
St. Mary's,
representative
yeah.
of St. Mary's all the way through until he wasn't,
Mhm.
and then achieved these other things outside of that, but.
Cause the decision would ultimately fall, you can receive nominations from people who aren't eligible even after reading the eligibility criteria. The ultimate decision would fall with the committee to determine what you deem to be a noteworthy achievement. And there are countless sports that you might not have personal knowledge or awareness of that we would need to look into further if nominations were submitted.
Are you looking at getting, like, if you add that red 3 lines in, what are you looking to get rid of?
I'm not looking to
No, what?
get rid of or add anything,
What would there be some
but it would,
suggestions?
well,
Do you need to pull those examples out?
I personally feel like the examples are more of a hindrance than a benefit, because then it feels like it must fall within the examples when they're truly just a sample.
I agree with him.
I don't know if others feel the same way,
I mean, you have IE and et cetera, that's 2 things showing it's. an
showing that it's an
example.
example.
Can't add any more than 2, that.
Yeah,
More than 2, but.
and maybe that's the,
But the examples are in some cases far reaching, right?
They're all Ontario.
Well, I'm looking at the second statement, Olympic Games, Pan Am Games, et cetera. you know, like if somebody, if we had somebody,
Showing two
Particip-
categories, though,
Part-
provincial,
Yeah.
national, international.
So the question would be, if you took, like, you would want. You don't necessarily need someone to, like, you would want to have somebody in their application identify what actually constitutes a provincial or national or international championship. Probably, because if you take those examples out, then there's no way to. Like, it would be up to the committee then to put those, like, to connect the dots a little bit more, right?
What would be the standard for, say, bowling? What letters would you use for provincial, like how that's when you
Yeah, that's
include
where-
those things, then you're maybe
Yeah,
eliminating other,
It's just saying IE and et cetera, like, yeah, Joanna had the list of 30
Ontario.
acronyms.
we could have an
Why
exhaustive
you-
list of provincial
Yeah,
and national
exactly.
governing bodies,
Everything.
but
I know.
it doesn't necessarily make it. there's still gonna be
Recognize,
something
wanna recognize provincial, national, or
I think it's
Canadian.
good to these examples in there, so people
Mhm.
have an idea of what you're talking about. I mean, bowling has Ontario Championship, bowling
Mhm.
National Championship.
Yeah, but are those all hockey references? I don't even know.
No, one is hockey, it's
Hockey,
hockey,
baseball.
baseball.
Oh, okay.
There's 3 out of 4 of those examples, and the provincial ones are hockey. Youth sports and Canadian collegiate, like that is all, that would be representing every kind of sport.
Right, okay.
Maybe. Maybe the provincial one is too much, but. Well, you either leave them all in or you take them all out,
Yeah.
really, right?
Well, yeah, provincial one is 3 hockey, 1 baseball, so I mean, you could pick Ontario Bowling Association or Ontario Tennis Association, like.
Yeah, like just to mix it up a
Yeah,
little.
but they're gonna be 100, right?
Yeah, exactly, but the examples of 3 hockey and 1 baseball instead of 1 hockey, 1 baseball, 1 something else and something else.
National, international, I mean, those are the 2 biggest ones, Olympic Games and Pan Am Games,
Yeah.
obviously, there's the
Mhm.
Canada Summer Games, there's, again, there's many of them that you could
Mhm.
put in
But
there.
maybe Canada Summer Games is a good one to add in the national for more like youth amateur. Even here. Mhm.
The OTA, OWHA, is that, is the.
So OWHA is just what, or sorry. OWHA was there, but I
Yeah.
moved it up to OMHA /
Okay, and then
OWHA.
the OHA can come out, honestly, because it's like a, well, you know what? Like. It's hard because Hockey Canada is the governing body for all of hockey in Canada. There are a lot of leagues and things like that that aren't reflected in OWHA, OMHA, so I mean. Again, we're splitting.
It is an
Splitting
exam-
hairs a little bit,
yeah,
right? 'Cause
yeah.
you would have to have a million, you'd have to make
Yeah,
these
but I
examples of
think
things.
Locally, OMHA
They're
and
the ones that are most
OWHA are the
common.
St. Mary's leagues.
Not sure about the OHA unless it's. Like, it would be that would be the governing body that, like, of
The
the
leagues.
leagues, yeah.
I think it's good to leave the examples in there and adding the ones you've added and making variety for the provinces. And adding Canada Summer Games, I like, because again, it's more reachable
Mhm.
aspect than obviously Olympic and which are international, I guess, but.
And if you want to put bowling, it's the whole 5 PBA.
There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Drop it in there.
There you go.
Just so this group's ready to review bowling on.
Yeah,
this.
exactly, but if it's a 10 pinner, we gotta change that. Anyways, I think that's probably lots.
Okay.
And do we want to remove the word professional?
Yes.
It doesn't exclude anyone who did it professionally, but it's
Or
just not
just
a
put
criteria.
professional / amateur.
Sure.
response. Add amateur or take it out,
I'd
because it
say,
could otherwise just says noteworthy success.
I like the noteworthy success.
I do actually kind of like noteworthy, because it is actually then something that we are making specific. Like celebrating, right?
Okay. Any other thoughts, comments on teams? Okay, we'll move down to athletes. So this kind of going back to what Jeremy had mentioned about Mike Craig as an individual athlete. So yes, when he lived locally, he competed locally and represented St. Mary's. But what I've highlighted here, highest level of achievement within a reasonable geographic area, like recognizing that at some point to continue on with your sport, you're likely not going to be able, you can't continue representing St. Mary's and play for the Colorado Avalanche. So whether that's something that you want to highlight there, or that's just something that the committee recognizes, because there was a lot of discussion over the past 2 intake periods about whether the person was from St. Mary's or represented St. Mary's, or like the Lincoln's team that was inducted last year would be an example of not all of those Lincoln's players were from St. Mary's, but they were playing on a St. Mary's team. Versus Mike is from St. Mary's, played minor sports in St. Mary's, but all of his success was from non-St. Mary's teams. So more of a, whether it's something that's formally written in the policy or something that,
Like Mark Bell was in St. Paul's always,
yeah,
right, but played in St. Mary's and.
and represented, yeah. So, that's just something that I noted was a recurring conversation over the last 2 years. And, similar to what we've done above for teams, the second statement is a broader description of what success might look like. So achievements may include championships, records, awards, rankings, or significant competitive success, which kind of opens it up to whatever your sport is, whatever success looks like in that sport. It's a little bit more broad. Just a suggestion, we can leave it as is, or we can modify whatever the committee is thinking.
It feels like legal language if we put it in, but like competed at the highest level of achievement available within reasonable geographic areas. Comma, like what, just a second we put in, but like comma, not. Or possibly include, or like including, or. Something like, I don't know, it was a word I had a second before I started talking, but
If it comes back, let us know.
not limited to national or international. But that really opens up. Okay.
Do you feel like?
Or is it redundant then based on what comes next? Right, individuals who play for teams outside of our area and have won provincial, national, international championships will be considered this category. There is some redundancy in that if you,
Mhm. So we could take out what we just added about the geographic area, recognizing that that's really what the next sentence is intended
Yeah, take
to
a look.
capture.
The 2 lines there.
Yeah, the one of them will disappear.
Oh,
The one with the strikeout will be gone.
yeah, like I don't think you need to add. That first red statement we added that because it's already.
Yeah, I think it's there. Thoughts on including any of the more. I guess it's almost like an example of what who has excelled in one or more sports with distinction, so maybe that distinction may include, it's more of a such as kind of the examples that we provided for teams. It's something like records for if there was a swimmer or someone who did track or running, or like maybe they don't win the Boston Marathon, but they pulled the fastest time in, but I don't know, I'm not a runner, but as an example of something that might be more record setting or a ranking than a specific championship.
Yeah, you
or
just give an example.
I think
Yeah.
that's reasonable,
Achievements
put that
may
in there.
include boom,
Okay.
boom, 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 so I mean, that, yeah, put that in there.
Remove this.
Right
Somewhere.
there, right there, actually right there, we had it before the individual. In that Right there.
after the word distinction.
The only thing is, like, if you read that again now, though, it says, then it says the individual must have competed at the national or international levels. So that statement then contradicts,
Mhm.
it doesn't necessarily contradict, but it does limit people, because then the next sentence says people can have played for teams outside of our area and have won provincial, national, or international
Mhm.
championships. So if you win it, but let's say you only have played outside the area and won a provincial championship, you would not be eligible in this criteria because you did not play at a national or international level. So like, let's say the provincial championship is the highest you can go,
Mhm.
then if you are the provincial champion for bowling, even if the O5 BA is ready to send you to the nationals, and for some reason there isn't a national competition, you never get back there, you actually would never be eligible for this award.
What should I
because-
just say, could be that provincial, national, or international? Add the word provincial.
Yeah, so if we keep the red statement. And then go right to amateur and professional athletes are included, individuals who have played for teams outside of. We could say
But therefore,
individuals,
say have one, they gotta. win it,
Outside
not
of
just
the
play.
St. Mary's area instead of our.
Well, this is the thing, right, cause it's crossing, so what's happened is we've eliminated the part where it's all we've done is just said. It allows someone to be eligible if they've only won the provincial championship. But then this other piece goes on to that. Which I think is a little bit of a different kind of concept about people who are playing team, cause that's like, that's a different.
representing
It's a
is
different,
different.
it's like item B, it's like, no,
Mhm.
that's something different. Yes, it's similar to the one before, but it actually is a little bit different, because it's talking about playing on teams outside of the area. And winning provincial, national, or international championships.
Yeah, the crossed out green line says play in, line below says win.
Yes,
That's like one championship.
Mhm.
So are we allowed people who have played in a championship or just people who have
Oh,
won?
so the crossed out line I just moved down, it's still
but
here.
if I think about like past ones, so there was a person who had competed at a high level in figure skating, say. And never, didn't win the provincial championship, they may have competed nationally,
Mhm.
didn't win the national championship either. So by these criteria, that person would not be eligible to be considered for.
Exactly, even though they got to the Olympics, they came in fifth.
They might have gotten second or
Yeah.
third.
Yeah.
Second or third in Ontario, second or third in Canada,
Right.
second or third
Yeah.
in the Olympic, fourth in the Olympics. And so at that point, they're
Mhm.
it's like, thanks for coming out. You're like
Yeah.
the third best skater in the world, but, or fourth best skater in the world. You just needed one injury, right?
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, so I think it's more if you're really looking at the community and who you're expecting or anticipating getting nominations from. Do you want the criteria to be so rigid that if you didn't win or you didn't get on the podium? Or is representing St. Mary's on a national or global stage the feat in itself?
No,
well, I think it goes back to the sort of rub between. Everybody should get in, everybody should be recognized, and it only recognizes the best. That really is what it's boiled down to the last 2 years we've had these conversations. It's like, what do we believe about this honor for people? Like, you know,
I think we're being too restrictive if it's, in my perspective, too restrictive, because there could be a kid in town who played through, the St. Mary's, hockey, who doesn't go on in OHA, but gets a full ride scholarship to a US university. Now that in itself is a feat, but he may not go past the 3 years of university. Or 4 years of university,
To me, that's-
or he'll go into, play for the Marlies or even lower grade A hockey or whatever, right? Professional hockey,
yeah,
and we never hear from him again, but it's a kid who's done. Or a person who's done something spectacular as far as I'm concerned, if they can walk away from St. Mary's and end up in a US university program, playing football or basketball or hockey or
well, I do
whatever.
that, I mean, thinking like of girls hockey, there certainly are some female hockey players in town. That have had more success and more opportunities lately in that kind of environment you described. To me, though, I would want them to have been on the national championship team in the NCAA. Like, I would want them to be playing for whatever team they're playing for happens to
Yeah.
win that championship.
We kind of go back up
Yeah,
in the
it-
teams,
it's
that
called-
list of.
it's
new
called-
sport.
I understand what you're saying, Rick, like, I'm not disputing that necessarily, but I think it's something like there are some of those pathways are a little bit more, they're awesome still, and there are very few kids that do it, but they're more common than you think.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I don't know, and it's also a matter of like, then the argument is, well, is one path easier than the other when we like, if we make it so that depending on the criteria, you know, is there, if two, let's say it's gendered, and then all of a sudden we open a huge can of worms, because it's like, if there are gendered, if opportunities exist that are greater for one gender versus the other, then are we unfairly, is there an unfair advantage based on language about inducting somebody or whatever, right, for certain sports? Now that's really how, I'm just thinking about the Olympic mess that's happened and all the pushback and all the things, just wanted to make sure we, you know, continue to be as inclusive to as we can, so.
Yeah, that's the inclusivity part, because like, there's a unicyclist that's in St. Mary's and he's gone and to competitions and won awards. I don't know the description of what he's done, but he's traveled to do so, and how does he qualify if it's not a national or, you know, it's like a really niche thing
I
that
think
he
we've,
does.
I think we've narrowed the scope too much, my opinion.
Yeah, we want to
Because
include
going back to
someone like
that figure
too.
skater, you know, he's done about all he can do. And he's represented St. Mary's very, very well,
Well, at
But-
multiple levels as well.
at multiple levels, but he's never reached, you know, where he's fourth in the Olympics, let's say, you know. Too bad, you're,
I know, but we're calling it the wall of fame. There has to be some degree of fame, right? It has to be recognizable. If we're gonna call it wall of fame, like,
But we're saying
make it
achievements may
people.
include championship records, awards, rankings, or significant competitive success. Like your unicyclist, your skater.
Well, and that fourth in the
If-
Olympics is
if-
significant competitive success.
Yeah, the
as well.
nominator thinks they're significant, and then we think they're significant for being a great unicycle or a skater, then they fall in that red line that's on there on the screen.
Mhm.
It's just the winning part, I guess that's the part that we have to be like, so that I think we all agree, like the red part you just described. Talks about those like significant,
Mhm.
significant victories or achievement, right?
Mhm.
It's the winning part, it's in
The one.
in that
which is
one,
The
sentence,
top
a couple there.
of the level, is one.
I'm talking in the sense that individuals who have played for teams outside the area go one.
Right.
in the international arena.
and, you know, I'm thinking of a young fellow over here that's represented St. Mary's in the special Ontario Special Olympics, in National Special Olympics and in golf.
Yep.
And in, what else does he play?
But
Well,
let's,
golf specifically.
yeah, golf, yeah.
You know,
Are we getting?
once he gets to that extent, he's represented us, he's represented the Ontario at national competition, isn't that enough?
Well, certainly for consideration, yeah. Because if we say you have to have one, it eliminates a lot of people right away.
Yeah,
That's all, I guess, I think that's what we're all getting at, right?
I guess that really just applies to teams, how to play for teams
So I think that
outside the area. that's
we're
one.
missing the latter half of the sentence, that ignore where I changed one to participated in. Amateur and professional athletes are included in this category, individual, so it's more a capture of, because this is the athletes criteria. So this is to state that if it is an individual athlete being nominated, but they're being nominated because of participation in a team, not because of individual success,
That
then
that
they
team
will,
must
and
have
it's
one.
that they will, it doesn't even say they must have one, it says they will be considered. So if they played on a team that won those things, this is the category they would be considered in, not a team of other participants who are not from St. Mary's, is my read of that, but I think changing it from one to participated in broadens it regardless.
But so we're talking about individuals who played on a team, whose team was really good, but they
The team
weren't.
was really good, but it wasn't a St. Mary's team.
If they
What if
want-
I'm the fourth line center on a soccer, or I'm the sixth bullpen pitcher on team. On the Michigan University baseball team wins the big, major, what do you call it, College World Series.
Spit it out.
Yeah, I'm just building this example in my mind, but like if I'm like,
He's
yeah,
got
like
the
some-
bowling
like
championship.
if I'm reasonably talented, like I'm talented enough to make that team, but not contributing a lot. Yeah, I don't know, like it's just, I don't know, there's the hardest part of all of it, I think part of it too is just that it's like, because it's jammed together and because they're not. It's hard to see them sort of flushed out, because which I think your point was a second ago, like, that actually isn't maybe saying what we think it's saying.
Yeah, I think it's more to the intent, if I recall correctly from 2 years ago when it was developed, was to capture one individual from St. Mary's or representing St. Mary's participated on a team where the team is not what's being inducted,
Mhm.
it's the individual who happened to participate in a team sport.
So what if you put in like also individuals who have played on a team outside, because that separates it from. Just individuals. And then you've got also individuals.
But I would think I'd put one back in there then, because there's lots of teams in St. Mary's that compete for provincials
Play.
every single year, like
Go and
baseball.
play.
St. Mary's minor ball has 8 teams that go for the provincial championship every single summer.
Yeah.
Or you play
And
on
they
the,
never win, but
Well,
now they're
that's-
eligible because
Yeah.
8 years in a row from when they were 10 to 18, they
They went to
they
OBA.
went to Labor Day weekend provincial championship.
Exactly.
So now they're eligible, but they didn't.
when they might have gone on a regional team. Too, right, might have been a kid who plays on a regional team that goes every year, that.
And that's the thing that we could have, in just baseball, 'cause I know baseball, we've got 8 teams nominated every single year, because every year 8 teams go to the championship.
Well, there's a lot of nuance to each, like even if you go up to the teams and you look at hockey, you win the OMHA championship, but did you win OMHA championship as a C team or an A team or at, like, there's competition levels within the championships. So there's an innumerable number of
I
factors.
think we're opening up too much, if we say just participated in,
Yeah.
for that one spot.
And maybe that's what happened, maybe that the. Not read the entire statement, I focused anyways on the word one versus participated in.
If you're an individual competing for something, you're good if you've done any of the red line. But if you're on an individual on a team,
Yeah.
And your team needs to have won something, so
Yes,
even though your team's not being nominated, you are.
you
as a
are, you
member,
were a part of the
having
team
been
that
part of
accomplished
that team.
something.
Yes.
Do we want to keep or remove the statement that the individual must have completed at national or international levels, or keep it with just the red?
Need to get that out, but.
I'd like to see it taken out and leave it to the discretion of the committee.
Well, I wonder if you just say, is there someone who can say that there's more likelihood of being selected if they are, I don't know, there's just,
More consideration will be given to the individuals that have played on a national or international level.
Consideration, or additional consideration, it leans certain direction.
I mean, that should be just sort of commonplace in this room that. You're comparing someone who only did something racially or someone who did something nationally, well, if they did nationally, they're
Yeah,
obviously
the
done
higher
better than
rated.
if they've done something
Yeah,
provincial.
It's just that we've created the norms for those conversations, like as we've walked through it, right? Like we know that if 2/3 of our,
The next
or all of our
committee.
committee changes, then it's like.
Yeah,
That the knowledge keeper is Joanna or somebody else who's here, and at which point. People are only taking what they have, not necessarily what the conversations have been,
exactly.
so whether it needs to be there or not, I think you're right, though.
I think the statement,
Inherently,
I think the statement significant competitive success also means national or international, or it can be up to the individuals of the committee. I don't think we want to say that it has to be.
Or how about just-
National or
Yeah, I think
international.
listing must have makes it more of an exclusion criteria than
Yeah.
inclusion, so it's really just the way that you want to. phrase
And the
it.
one above, we did example, national or international levels,
Mhm.
you know, just an example, national.
There we go.
Provincial to.
And then the kind of the weighting of international being higher than provincial and national is
Yeah.
inherent in the sentence.
And ultimately, that's for us to decide for May.
Yes. I don't know, hold on.
Do you, does it matter about, this is my teacher act, does it matter about the capitals for provincial, it's national, international, just so that it's consistent? But
I don't know why it was always capitalized, I feel like
I was
it's
just gonna
not
say, it is,
supposed
it
to,
is
it
in one
was,
and it is in the
yeah.
other, that's also, I just.
It was previously, so we can, I don't know why or how it started that way, but you're right, for consistency, well. We don't need to change that at this point.
Can you take out the green now?
Yes, that will get. If it has a strike through, then
Oh.
it's not to be considered. So now, in builders. Builders, I also had a few notes to be considered, sorry, Amanda, this spans 2 pages. Maybe if we zoom in on the red text first, so everyone can read it, and then we can go back and decide if we want to adjust any of it. A lot of the conversation from my recollection from the last couple of years was partially whether there's a lot of conversation about whether if it was someone's profession, then if they were counted as a builder, like there was a lot of assumption that the builder was in a volunteer capacity and not in a professional capacity, and I don't know that that was explicitly written in the criteria, but it's a conversation that was had. And I didn't know if we wanted to clarify that. So adding statements that are either a little more broad or provide more examples would be significant impacts on the development and advancement of amateur sport, contributed to the growth and success of sport in the community. A lot of this is already there. It's just extra words and language for your consideration. Contributed to sport in a non-athlete capacity. This was non-athlete was something that I found in a few other facilities that I've visited, because a lot, if it was the person as an individual competitor, they likely should be captured under team or athlete. So that was one distinction that I've noted elsewhere. Including but not limited to coaching, officiating, administration or governance, facility development, program creation, volunteer leadership, or other roles that have significantly advanced sport within the community or beyond. In conversations that I've had with even members of the public about the Sports Wall of Fame, builder is a category that's not broadly understood. So I felt like adding more examples and language about things that people may have done to contribute to sport in the community would be useful. And similarly, contributions must demonstrate long-term sustained service, impact on athlete development, participation or sport excellence, leadership that elevated their sport at the local, regional, provincial, national, or international level. So really just allowing for consideration for a variety of things, because builder is the most broad out of all of them, but there's certainly, especially within St. Mary's, there's a lot of very long-standing, very dedicated. All of those things, officials, coaches, volunteers.
So the only thing that,
I
like,
like the last statement.
the second last statement, last ones are fine, I just was thinking about someone like you mentioned about. Somebody making a living off of the promotion of that, like, I don't know that, like, that's you're an exceptional power skating coach or something, you're getting paid to do that. But that actually is advancing the skill level of of athletes in the area, so, like, I don't know that we can necessarily say that.
Yeah,
someone's doing that
it's
to be
the
paid,
difficult
and that would eliminate like officials, let's say.
Well, no, you know, if we've got a guy that's been out refereeing hockey for 20, 30 years, or a guy been umpiring baseball for 20, 30 years, I mean, he deserves to be
Considered, but
considered.
that person is, that person is being paid to do that though, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so.
it was more, maybe? There was one other piece, sorry, my computer keeps locking. I might have.
And I think that's taken care of in that last statement, contributions must demonstrate long-term sustained service. You know, because umpires are beat up quite a bit. Referees are beat up quite a bit, or yelled at quite a bit. They take a lot of abuse, and to continue to take that over a certain number of years, that's, you know, they're helping out the community by doing that.
Is there a way to combine the last two statements? Like, is there, like, how much
I think
overlap
so.
is there in those?
I think there's a reasonable amount. Amanda, would you be able to scroll up to what we already have, just so before we start thinking about making the
What is
changes, if
it?
we identify what's written here and what we might add? I think it's more in Builder, more the addition of the text to specify what Builder represents than changing what's already here.
Yeah, I can enter that, so it's all in the same.
Oh,
page.
yeah. I also could have done that, but thank you so much.
Gotta change the numbering number.
That's okay, we'll fix it. Of course, athletes came with it, that's just the way it goes. If you, hold on, sorry. If you delete all of those, go all the way back, and then hit,
There we
like,
go.
hold control before you hit enter. And then it should just bring, well, it's not working, okay, that's all right, we're getting close.
You should- There we go.
there. So what we have listed previously to be considered under the builders category, individuals or organizations must meet the following description, originated in the town of St. Mary's. And this is something that played for or brought fame. I don't know that that necessarily applies in the builder category, and I
Right.
believe we've expanded the other ones enough to capture someone who did that. Or supported town of St. Mary's teams or sport organizations. So I think what could happen is contributed to sport, so the bottom two bullets would fall after. Supported town of St. Mary's teams or sport organizations, and then these bullets are descriptions of what that looks like.
Yeah, either, I agree with Jeremy, either of the last two.
Okay, so, and do we agree with played for or brought fame to can be removed because it's captured in the other two?
Yes.
The lot, sorry.
Roughly. Well, yeah. So,
Builders. Builders must have contributed to sport in a non-athlete capacity, including but not limited to. And then a description of what those roles might have looked like. And then for the last bullet, is there anything from there? Or do you want to just add it as another sentence? Builders must have demonstrated long-term sustained service impact on.
I think those two things are actually separate. Like there's.
I think so. One's more about the role itself, like what they were doing.
Yeah.
And the second one is the commitment to that role.
Right.
So I can, I'll move it up so that it's all together, but then maybe it would just be a matter of changing the specific terms that open and close the sentences. To be considered in the building.
Just lost formatting on that. Is that right?
Yeah. So all that happened is it's no longer
Very good.
a bullet, it's all included in the paragraph. Development, participation, sport excellence, leadership that elevated their sport. Builders may be nominated if they are still active, and if no longer active, they must have met the threshold of 25 years. Any
What would be an
other-
organization builder? If individuals and organizations.
Like. The
If you were a general
pickleball club, if
manager
you're
of a-
looking,
General manager of the Lakers, they talked about that, I always wanted to hear an individual.
there was
Supporting organization.
Long-term sponsors?
Your foundation member, but established that in St. Mary's.
or if we're looking 25 years into the future, it could be like the pickleball club brought. That club as a collective, the whole organization brought recognition and access to the sport to the town. We might recognize the full.
You would
organization.
induct St. Mary's pickleball.
Would you induct St. Mary's pickleball
After 25 years.
after 25 years? You're still here.
It'll be my.
I'm not sure what the terms are. You might not still here.
That'll be a long time serving on this board.
But it would be that they-
We would.
I don't
we
think
would
it's in-
induct an organization.
I don't think it's individuals or organizations, individuals or.
Organizations would fall under like long-term sponsors. If they have any. Like, I believe the team was originally named for the Lincoln dealership in town, wasn't it?
Probably, because that was part of their logo.
I'm just thinking how you would induct an organization.
But if we change it to representatives.
Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
There isn't, you would need to be, like, I see what you're saying, Scott, because like, it is one person who's a member of those organizations generally who's going to be recognized.
Mhm.
Like, there was a president of. Like the person who is the president of Lincoln's when it was formed and remained the president for the first 10 years. Like that person is the person who probably had a fairly significant impact in the building of that organization. It isn't the organization itself, and you're not gonna. Might be an argument that the whole board
Mhm.
is recognized as builders too, I guess that's
Yeah, I think leaving it as
Like-
representatives
trying to
is,
find a scenario where
broad.
that remains or that fits.
Would individuals could be grouped together?
So it could be a board, like a
Yeah.
founding board or something, and I guess that's your point, that's where, you're talking about.
Organization.
Well, and the founding board is usually brought together by one individual as well.
At least chaired by or led
Yeah.
by, right,
Mhm.
which tends to then be the person you would likely identify.
Yeah,
Individual or individuals. Allowing for, a pair or a team of people that were supporting something for a length of time.
It does say individuals.
It does,
There, so you can just take
individuals.
word or representatives, like you can just take that.
yeah, if you take organization, oh,
And the or in front of it, and just put individuals must meet the following description,
Yeah,
because then it could be
one or
a
two,
pair of
or-
individuals,
yeah.
a pair of individuals, is a pair.
Or we just call them nominees.
Oh, nominees.
Then it could be an individual or a group.
Mhm.
The nominees must meet the following.
Mhm.
Okay, anything else under builders?
So does that need to be in green striped out, or is like anything with the line is gone,
Oh,
but the nominees?
we'll
stay?
clean up the,
Okay.
yeah.
I was
Don't worry about the
okay.
double N's and double I's. We'll-
Okay, okay.
Anywhere that we identified, national, international, provisional, all of that will be fixed.
point of order here. I think if we've used the term nominees in that place,
Mhm.
do we have to go back
I think in the
to
other
other
ones,
groups or other
it's more
sections?
specific because for athletes, it is individuals, and for teams, it is teams,
Okay,
if that makes sense, like it's more specific.
Yeah, this leaves it broad to, without specifying two or three, it uses one word to capture.
Instead of
all.
listing a bunch of potentials. Okay, and then the very last thing that we had listed here. If you look back to the
Yes.
report, was clause for removal of past inductees, not anything that anyone hopes to have to deal with, but it's not necessarily something that we've captured as an exclusion or removal consideration. So the suggestion is to review the language as presented below to consider the addition of eligibility criteria in the nomination form. So the action item is to craft a statement, if the committee agrees that this is something that you would like to do. Craft a statement during the committee meeting based on the above noted comments, and if received and approved, it would be inserted into the form. So I kind of got ahead of myself. An example of when this may be considered would be information brought forward regarding the fair treatment, ethics, attitude, beliefs, or actions of an inductee that are not reflective of the town of St. Mary's. So that was the initial thought, and then some details. And then if you can scroll down.
I guess the slippery part of that is like, who determines that? Does the committee determine that? Is there? What kind of proof do you need, like,
Mhm.
right, because my neighbor is mad at me and I'm on the Hall of Fame and they say that I've done all kinds of awful things and that brings a petition forward, it does. However, we also don't want somebody's on the Epstein list and they're on our Hall of Fame, we wanna make sure that that gets addressed too. Not saying they are.
No,
Well,
it would be redacted.
you know, let's use, for example, the guy who, this wedding fella, is it, that,
Yeah.
you know, he was an Olympic athlete. Let's say he was from St. Mary's, made it all the way to the Olympics, now he's a fugitive, just because he is now a fugitive doesn't take away from the fact that he was an excellent athlete, right?
But do we want that person to be a role?
One of those things you have to get.
Yeah, but then you gotta take it with your role model. I
Because
totally,
it's a representative of a sportsmanlike upstanding,
Mhm.
it's like reflective of the town and the Sports Wall of Fame, so it's,
Is it,
I wouldn't want to see someone like that. in the
Yeah.
Sports Wall of Fame.
is what they. And there's also the difference of if they do something after they're in our Hall of Fame, or if they've done something.
Or
before
it was
they get
brought
in the Hall of
forward
Fame.
as previously unknown.
20 years from now, we find out that someone who conducted
Has done something.
has done something, or they do something. So there's there's differences here,
Mhm.
you know, we gotta find out like. They've done something, we don't put in the Hall of Fame because they've done X, but 20 years from now, I find out, oh,
Mhm.
that guy did something, just come out, or. Now they've done something, you know, in the Hall of Fame 20 years, are we taking them out? But when we put them in the Hall of Fame, they were really good people,
Mhm.
now we see them as not good people. So there's just a few. When they did it, what they did,
well, that,
and did they do it before or after they got it in the hall, like.
that's just it with the wedding
But the
fella,
title
there's been
exclusion removal
quite a period of
allows-
time elapsed since he won his gold medal or whatever, we probably would have put him in the Hall of Fame and now, you know, 10 years later, 20 years later, he's become a famous drug lord or whatever.
Like the language where it says inductees must have demonstrated sportsmanship or maybe must have, yeah.
I think it must have makes sense because you're reviewing their
You need
past.
to have done it when you were competing.
Yeah.
And then during and after the competitive career covers it now later. But just the slippery part of that is like. Who decides what's the correct, like, it's
Yeah,
a pretty broad statement, but.
It may be not beyond our community that decides too, depending on the level of.
yeah,
The
it's,
infraction.
it's one of those things where you can't change history.
I mean, there's stuff like if they're banned from their sport,
Mhm.
right? In baseball, I know a few examples, but every sport has probably some examples where they're banned from the sport, they did whatever.
Mhm.
You know, so do we follow suit with that? That's just one way that, you know, it's, if we're trying to put something in place, we could say that as one of the rules, that they're banned from the
Mhm.
sport of hockey because they did X, Y, Z, then we shouldn't consider them either.
So we could
or-
say inductees with conduct that conflicts with the values of their governing sport body, the Sports Wall of Fame or the town of St. Mary's. Cause then if they were excluded from competition of their governing sport body, whatever that may be.
And you also gotta look at like, what about they're temporarily banned, like the tennis player and like the pole vaulter are probably gonna get banned. Those two are Olympic athletes, not from here, but they're from some town.
Mhm.
They're both getting 2-year bans for their non-drug tests.
For not being, but they're not even, they didn't even fail drug tests, they just weren't, they
They
didn't
didn't
disclose the
submit it,
locations.
So they've been banned for 2 years from the sport, but then in 2 years they compete again.
Sure.
Yeah, like those are the kinds of things look too, and it's the criteria, like, okay, so what was the ban for? Where the ban was because you didn't update your calendar, your Google calendar, like, in some of these cases, that's what some of these athletes would be losing their eligibility for a couple of years. Some of them were taking banned substances, so like, again, it's like,
I don't think we could provide an exhaustive list.
no, it
No.
just, not at all, right? I pulled up one of the AI tools to see if there's something that might help with that, I don't know, but.
Would they, that the committee would maybe recommend the removal, but I think it would be a council decision to, enact that
Pass it
removal.
along. We've
Well, I'm
identified
just-
this.
Right, because you've got
That's
the
true.
town of St. Mary's,
Mhm.
in there, the Hall of Fame, or the town of
Well,
St. Mary's
council-
making.
Burn, yeah, council can say no to our suggestion, is that right, or? do they-
And this process is the committee's process. So you guys, as a group, this group leads this process,
Right,
so it would be a recommendation. It would depend, as you said, further before, on the circumstance, right? There's so many different variables when it comes to this. And this was one that we struggled with last time, I remember, we had a lot of conversation with this piece. But it might be something that this committee brings forward to council if we were really concerned about reputation of the Wall of Fame as a whole, because it would be reputation of the whole Wall of Fame, or perhaps the community based on whatever was up there at the time.
well, there may be two levels of review. So there's a level within this community and then there's another level at council. And I mean, we would be putting council for the town at the risk of making that decision, whatever that means. Yeah,
So I just threw it into Copilot, which is the Microsoft AI tool.
yeah,
But it does say things like, so for example, like, it's a very comprehensive overview of the prompt I used was create a removal clause for a member of a Hall of Fame who has done something untoward. So from there, it just basically says, like in the sort of plain English version, it says, you know, if a Hall of Fame member engages in serious misconduct, and it gives examples, then this says the hall, or it could be the committee or the town of St. Mary's can suspend the member temporarily while it reviews. The member gets notice and a chance to respond, the majority vote is, or it talks about the majority vote for removal. You may remove displays, listings and honors, if that removal is decided, the person can appeal it, like, so there's things about it like that that are kind of in a. Like, that's a process for that whole thing too, it's outlining that. There's a lot, it's way more detailed in the kind of in what's given, but just even a quick thing like that, there is that. We don't have to, like, it's hard for us to be able to even think of all the possibilities, that's where these the tools are available to us and tweak them for our needs, but
Did we have nothing before, just,
we had nothing.
Yeah,
okay,
nothing.
so I mean, this is good, I mean, the two you have up there are good. Demonstrate sportsmanship, integrity, respect. You know, it's gonna come down to what we think as a committee,
Mhm.
if they're good sportsmanships, if they respect the sport, like, again, obviously, we have our chats in May, or April, May. We're gonna determine that ourselves.
Yeah, like, I think.
I mean, one's letting people in the Hall of Fame, and one's what to do if they're already in and we gotta take them out.
Mhm.
So. I mean, if. The first one is basically. Getting them in,
Mhm.
But I like the idea that it's an exclusion clause rather than like, it's not just a removal clause, like that, you could very well be excluded from consideration for that first
Sentence.
point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So to remove someone from the Hall of Fame, then
it's the second point.
Better be really sure they did something, the one.
Yeah, that's where what you just read there allows for, you know, a suspension.
Well, there's a process,
consideration,
right?
a process.
And maybe what you have to do is you would put in here, some, like, reflect on some sort of process, but you don't have, like, I don't know if you have to actually outline it in the document, or you probably do.
Maybe do.
We do, I mean, ultimately, like, if they're charged of criminal crime.
Like this, for example, like in one of these elements, it says sanctions, removal from the hall, suspension, censure, modification of how they're displayed, like those kinds of things, but really in the end, you just want the decision would be to leave them or not leave them, right? More or less, it's not really a, like, you can get back in if you clean up your act, it's not really that either.
No,
What do, as you travel the
But-
province, what other,
I didn't see anybody spray painted red or anything.
Just an act.
what are they, like, what's Stratford do and what's? all
I
the
don't
other
think a
places?
lot of them have this, and I remember, like Stephanie had mentioned that it was a big conversation, I think last year, it was around the same time that Ryerson University's name was being changed. So I think a lot of it has kind of been like stepping stones since then, there was a bit of a tipping point where tolerance for past behavior when deemed egregious was. Sure, it was acceptable at the time, but was it right and just, or was it sportsmanlike or done with integrity? So. I think
It doesn't reflect our values.
Yeah,
But I think, if I mean, that last sentence in there, it's broad and open enough. I think it's just, if it happens, then there'll be a review. I don't know that it needs to be very specific. Because I
Yeah.
don't think we want to be very specific, because there's so many variables.
But it's not like everything else, if
That's
we're
exactly.
super specific, then we have to actually live and die by like one word potentially.
Yeah, so I
I
think
think
that
this-
kind of ties. it
oh,
all
yeah,
in.
allows for review.
Yeah,
If information is brought forward about an inductee or a nominee, it will be considered.
Yeah, that either we.
And
have to
can be
talk, or
excluded.
Council has to talk.
Yeah.
Whichever group should be talking. I think it's something you could. Put this in now and then over the next year, when you talk to Stratford and whoever else has Walls of Fame, you could ask them, what do they do? Right?
Yeah. That'd be
Not
right.
many have it now, but more are gonna get it.
Mhm.
And if we show, hey, we have one, well, then Stratford might wanna borrow ours and say, well, why, how did you get that one? And they'll create one, and then Lisbon will
Yeah,
create one,
just-
and then Kitchen will create one, and
Trickles down.
yeah, so. I think it's a great start. Use this for this year and then,
Hopefully, we never have to use it.
yeah, well.
Well, it's a CYA clause, right, like it's just if they're just in case. I hope that. But it does also too, I think if I think back again to what we said before about like, you know, new people in the group. That way it does, like, so. Nobody else had the opportunity, they could go back, I guess, and watch the video, but. Really to have the context for this is the decision we made and why, right? So-
Mhm.
Should we add, by whom the induction, inductees may be demonstrating whatever that is by the nomination committee? So that we're the ones that are refusing them to be, included. And
That's our, but it's our,
Yeah, that's the
Well, us
last
doing that.
sentence.
We don't
The
use
last
our
sentence
words,
is you.
so,
Yeah.
okay,
our committees creating these words.
okay, so for the second one, should we say that by the committee or council? Council.
I think, my opinion, I think it should be a council call as opposed to this committee's.
I think they'll probably want a recommendation from the committee because the
Yeah.
committee we are the ones that placed them there and reviewed them the first time.
Yeah.
So I would expect it would come through the committee to council.
that's exactly,
Yeah,
that would be exactly the process.
Or
Yeah.
from council to the committee. to
Joanna,
Well, the council may request the committee to look at
Review
it
the individual.
and then get that, whatever that is, decision and then do whatever they want with that.
Yeah, Joanne's gonna hear about it, she's gonna say, we gotta talk about it, and then we would bring a
Yeah.
recommendation to council.
One of the things that it says here, like just, I've just gone through and refined this AI prompt build. And it just, one of the things that I think is kind of cool and interesting about it says induction, so this is what Induction to the Sports Hall of Fame is an honor, not a lifetime guarantee. The hall has the right to revoke induction when necessary to protect the integrity of the mission and reputation. That's what that says, which I actually think is great.
I think that's excellent. verbiage.
Yeah.
So like,
Can you?
Too bad. we didn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, ready?
That's
We're
not,
Yeah.
gonna test my
Okay.
typography.
so induction into the
Do you know what it
Sports
is?
Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Wall of Fame is an honor. Then it's got they're called a dash. Not a lifetime guarantee. The Wall of Fame, the committee. Actually, yeah. Advisory council. The
There's
committee.
a typo there, don't want.
You're doing great.
And the town of St. Mary's. So it's on just us, has the right to revoke. Induction. When necessary. To protect. The integrity. And this word says of its mission and reputation. And I don't think there's a municipal code of conduct or, how it gets captured, but.
Mhm. And then it ends with, our decisions are final. Shut it down,
You don't
that's
like
it.
it?
phone calls.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that was the last. Yes, the last recommended action was
Nice.
crafting a statement for exclusion or removal. So that's the end of my formal report for the Sports Hall of Fame. A couple of follow-up items on Sports Hall of Fame.
Little bit, yeah.
Is, so now that we have this, next steps, Amanda might be able to share the specific dates, but what I will do is connect with Amanda tomorrow morning with that track changes version. That's what will be presented to council so they can see. I'll clean up the stuff where we've moved it around and it's duplicated, so it's only shown once as a revision. That will go forward to council with a report. The report itself will be very similar to this so that council can see the direction and where we came to all of these decisions. And then the track changes version will be presented to them and they can choose to approve it as presented or recommend further changes. I believe there's 2 council meetings in March, so if there are revisions based on the first presentation, we have time to make those changes before the nominations go live in April, but the plan would be to bring this forward, hopefully have it approved at the first read through, and then we'll update the website with communications to be ready to receive nominations April 1st. Do you have a question?
I have 2 questions, actually. We've had 2 seasons of this, correct? And what happens in eventuality, we get 8 or 10 seasons under our belt if we're all here. And someone for many years has nominated a particular individual for one of their deeds. And all of a sudden they just say, you're not gonna do it. But we come to a year where, hey, what this guy did is better than the nominations we have. Do we have to be a ability to say, hey, what about this guy back here? And
The
bring their nomination forward from previous years?
criteria states it's held for a period of, I want to say 5 years, but somewhere in here.
I think it's 5 years.
Oh,
I thought it was 4.
Well, I think the initial year would count as
Plus.
year one,
oh,
so
plus,
four,
oh,
four
okay.
additional
Right.
intake periods. So after the last of those intake periods, it wouldn't be considered moving forward. So that would be for the committee to recognize if someone has been carried forward multiple
Yeah, but
seasons,
in-
if at
in-
some
in-
point.
The case I'm thinking of, the individual's been nominated twice,
Mhm.
so.
They could be nominated 3 more times.
Because it carries forward.
They're on the ballot, it's on the
They
ballot.
maintain a position on their ballot, yeah.
They maintain a position on the ballot, so we could go back and reach
Mhm.
and say, let's have a look at that guy.
Yeah, so each
Okay.
year you
Even if he's
are
not-
bringing forward anyone who was eligible but not inducted in the prior season
Yes,
until they reach their fifth consideration window.
okay,
At which point then someone could renominate them and they would
Yeah.
then exist in that pool of nominees for 5 years again.
okay, did we include all the past nominees then with last year's?
Mhm.
Okay. The second question, and I know we've had one nominated that's been kind of archived from years gone by. Because we have a relative currently living in St. Mary's that knows the history of the individual. Have we got a way to access archives to say, hey, what about this guy that did that for St. Mary's way back when?
Yes, the museum, I think quite a few of the nominees from last year met with the museum and had appointments there and went back in archives and pulled newspaper clippings and team standings, and they also reached out to the individual sport organizations. So like if it was a hockey player, they would have reached out to St. Mary's Minor Hockey or the Lincolns. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
but searching for specific individuals, yes, but what about? Are there unknown individuals hidden in our archives that did something really neat for St. Mary's?
I don't know. Someone would have to find them.
Yeah, so you're saying like, is there a person who might be seeking out some like untold stories of greatness
Yes,
in past days, and all the people who would promote or support that are now either moved away or passed away,
yeah,
so that they kind of get forgotten? Is that kind of your thinking?
yeah, that's, I mean, Town of St. Mary's been here for a long time.
If I can, so we did talk about this, and we had decided for the first 2 years, now the committee might choose another direction, that if there weren't enough nominations that came forward, we would ask the museum to pull, because there are some in the archives that would be eligible for the Wall of Fame. But because we had enough applicants, we didn't go down that path. Now, that might be something that committee wants to say, have a designated spot for previous ones. I mean, maybe, I don't know. That would be up to the committee to decide. Like, there could be a year where there are not enough nominations, and I think that's kind of where we had kind of looked at that and said, if there isn't, then we'll see what we pull from archives, because we know in speaking to Amy that there are individuals that we could and would be eligible for the wall. We just hadn't got to that yet with the first 2 years, so if the committee is looking at that, that is definitely something we can discuss.
So we've not given, like, we're not giving the direction to somebody at the museum to seek nominees for us. We've been fortunate
had
enough to have
enough,
enough people voluntarily put their name forward or have their name put forward that we choose from there.
It'd be interesting to have the 3 candidates and then one from, like, there may be no one that shows up to represent that individual, because there may be no one around
Mhm.
for that, but they could be, you know, just part of a package of-
From the archives.
from the archives.
Yeah,
Yeah. That would be a committee thing, but we would look at, 3 and then,
Maybe something to put forward for next year, like maybe
Mm-hmm.
we start to consider in year 4 or 5 that, like, pulling a name from archives. That,
Yeah.
Reflecting on some of the past.
because no one's going to nominate things.
yeah, no one's around to nominate, and that's
Right,
kind of what I'm thinking, you know.
yeah, no one will do that for them.
When they were maybe curling out on the frozen over Thames River.
Donate Andrew. Is there anything else then, Joanna, that you want to add to that, or we're?
I don't think so. Do we need anything else formally to bring it to council?
No, I don't think so. The way the recommendation is worded in the agenda, you're going to recommend to council that they approve the changes as outlined in Joanna's staff report. And then there will be that draft cleanup version. So I don't know if the committee's interested once the agenda is published in March. you could always go in there and see the final cleaned up version as well, that would be before council.
Okay, so I'll make the recommendation that the DCS 06-2026 Sports Wall of Fame project update report be received and do I have to do it separately?
You'll pay council.
Okay, and that the Recreation and Leisure Advisory Committee recommends to council that the council approve the revision to the Sports Wall of Fame nomination form as outlined in DCS 06-2026. Thank you, Scott. Anybody a second for that? Thanks, Rick. All in favor? Thank you very much. All right, great. Upcoming meetings. We'll see everybody back, May 27th, 2026. At which point I'm guessing we'll receive some nominations for the Wall of Fame and have conversations about that.
Would it be possible to have a printed copy of the nominations? Because I do so much better flipping through paper and
I
stuff.
think we've done that.
Did we do that last year? I can't remember. I did come in a
Yeah.
package, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was in a
Yeah.
folder, yeah,
Yeah, but-
I know. I
Yeah.
remember.
They were all,
Sorry.
No.
they were all packages that we can't leave the room. right?
Yeah.
Yes,
They're
yes,
all
yes.
Presidential packages, and I think
That's right.
we've had them at the center that you could.
Yeah, we had
Yeah,
to
you
pick
can
them
pick it
up,
up
yes.
In
from the
advance
Chip
and
Center.
review and then leave them with us at the end,
Yeah.
and
Thank
we'll
you.
do the same.
For
Yeah.
sure. And with that, I'll make a recommendation that we adjourn our meeting at 7:50 PM. Thanks, Rick, and seconded by Scott, all in favor. Thank you very much, everybody.
Done.
Well done.